There is a legal bullseye being placed squarely on the forehead of another Republican governor. You just heard from him, Scott Walker in Wisconsin. This has been flying under the investigative radar for some time, but in this case, there would appear to be some damning evidence of impropriety. Now, of course, we have to look into this. Rock solid or a partisan hack job? Break open the legal books. We welcome in our legal analyst, Michelle Suskauer, joins us here in the studio. Good to see you again, Michelle.
Thank you. Good to see you.
All right. Scott Walker says, quite frankly, hey, look, this has been resolved before. Why are we even here? So then we have to begin with the question, why are we even here?
Well, what you had said is there is a legal bullseye on his back. There is no question about it. And it's interesting that there are allegations that have been opened up in terms of prosecutorial memorandum that we are now looking at. And the question is why? But this is not going away for him. And I think that they're going to try to find some way to get him, even though two judges have tried to stop this investigation. It hasn't stopped.
Is this just a matter of you get told no, you go back. You get told no, you get back. It almost sounds like, again, we have a petulant child here who's being constantly told, and you're saying, no, let's go back. We have to find something in there. We got to dig somewhere in there.
Well, that's the way that some folks are looking at this. And again, because there are so many political implications here as to whether he is a potential Republican candidate for president, it's hard not to think in that direction. But again, two federal judges, so what do? We go to state court and we see if there's something there that we can get him in another venue, and that's the way that they're doing this.
Discuss, if you will, the venue issue here, because I think that's part of it. When you go to federal and you get told no, and then you go to another, you get told no. And I guarantee you there are people asking, how many venues are there, and how deep can somebody go if you really want to continue to go after this?
But this is not, I mean, this just because, again, it does not preclude an investigation, and it certainly does not preclude a prosecution if you do not have grounds in federal court. I mean, there are people who were prosecuted in both federal and state court. Just because federal court, different rules, you have different regulations. So it's possible that this will get shut down again. But again, it's very hard to separate whether this is politically motivated or whether or not there's something that significantly was done incorrectly. And unfortunately for the governor, he has some things in writing here that may prove to haunt him.
Now, that's good. You took me right where I was going here, because apparently this is a quote from an email in which Scott Walker tells Republican strategist Karl Rove that a top campaign aide was leading the coordination effort, and he praises Johnson's work. Okay. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I only play one on TV here.
Me too. No, I really am.
A lot better at it than I am. But let's get into the basics here. If you're going to do something, well, right or wrong, if you put something in writing, specifically in an electronic form, I think there's still a consideration from a lot of people that it magically disappears somewhere down the road. If you're an attorney talking to a client, wouldn't you tell them you write nothing down? You don't put anything in print because it can come back to haunt you.
Absolutely, and emails last forever. We used to have those old-fashioned letters where, you'd mail it and, who knows what would happen to it.
Letters?
You remember those? And handwriting?
Things with stamps, I
guess. That's right, but when you put things via email, at least in some places, they stick and you can find them. Sometimes they magically disappear, but in this particular case, we have it. And it is a really big red flag for him. Especially with the recall election.
How nice of you to be prescient and look forward to what we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes. Let me just get back to the courts here for a moment. When we look at going after a case like this, when we talk about federal courts, state courts, in your opinion, which one has the most power, I guess? Which one would seem to be the one that could really tell a story and get the evidence without having to continue to go back and back and back and back? Is there anyone that really takes precedence?
Well, I mean, just as a criminal, speaking as a
Yes.
criminal defense attorney, it's federal court. I mean, it's federal court. You have, unlimited resources, and, I think that they're just incredibly, federal prosecutors are incredibly powerful. But interesting that now we're looking in the state arena, he is the governor of that state. It's a real tight wire that they're walking on. But again, prosecutors, whether you're in state or federal court, both have significant power. But because you're asking me, I would say federal court.
Federal court.
No question.
Usually is. Okay. We have a lot more to talk about here. Scott Walker has his own issues here, which he is going to have to deal with. Let's talk about some other issues here, but go to the greatest court in the land, the Supreme Court now.
That's right.
We've got 2 weeks left to hand down some of the rest of the term's decisions here. So let's look at a few of them here and get your opinion on where these stand and where they're going.
Right.
The birth control mandate, Obamacare's birth control mandate sit there. That's all part of a number of different cases that are throwing around out here. Where do you think the Supreme Court's going to go here?
You know, everybody is watching this. This is the Hobby Lobby cases,
Yes.
and it really is in terms of whether a for-profit corporation actually has First Amendment rights, where if they have a strong religious beliefs, that whether or not they have to provide health care, including contraceptives. And so it's significant. It's unbelievable. We are waiting with bated breath on that one. I don't know where the court is going to fall on that one, because there's a variety of different issues. That's just one of a couple of companion cases going along with that. But obviously that's going to affect, we already know what nonprofits, but this is a for-profit corporations and their First Amendment rights.
Knowing full well how this is going and how Hobby Lobby has fought this and many other companies that are out there basically saying that their religious rights precede a lot of things that the Supreme Court can say, would you guess that no matter where the Supreme Court comes down on this specific case, this is going to continue to be challenged, and there will be further challenges, and there will at every single level, no matter where you go.
There is no question about it. You are absolutely right. This will continue to be challenged wherever you fall on the political spectrum.
This is I can't even,
whether you're for providing it or absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, but again, interesting that again we have 2 weeks left, and there are so many big cases. This is a biggie.
All right, now the second one here, the abortion clinic buffer zones. A 2007 Massachusetts law makes it a crime for speakers to be within 135 or 35 feet to gather their right to speak, their right to protest.
When people who watch the Supreme Court, one of the things that they watch, and although it doesn't mean necessarily where the Supreme Court is going, is who's asking the questions and what are the questions they're asking in terms of the justices during oral argument. And it seems as though the Supreme Court may try to craft something that may be a little less restrictive than the 35-foot buffers are pro-life, who are being what they would argue are discriminated against. So it's very interesting, and we'll see what the Supreme Court's going to do with that one.
Is there any thought process here that's out there about, of course, this is an abortion case, it still centers around that, as to where the Supreme Court has been in the past, where they might go, where the judges would consider to go in a case like this?
It seems that the folks that are watching this seem that they think the Supreme Court may say that there may be a less restrictive method than that. I mean, it's going to be very interesting. This has been pending for quite some time. Again, another big case that they've left to the very, very last moment.
Well, but we've seen that before. It's
No
not as
question.
if this is any great shock here this happens. All
No,
right.
June is big. June is big as the Supreme
Always.
Court, yes.
Presidential recess appointments that may limit the scope of presidential power. Explain this a little bit.
Okay, this arose out of 3 appointments that President Obama made to the National Labor Relations Board. And it was during not really a recess, but when Congress, when actually the senators were not actually there, but they actually were in session, and so, then there actually couldn't be a confirmation.
There, but they're
So
not there. Can be, shouldn't be, might be.
That's right. So it's really going to be what the president can do when Senate is in session, when Senate's not in session.
Okay, presidential recess appointments. Now we go to labor union rights. This is based on Harris versus Quinn. Again, a little background.
This is about state health workers who may not be part of a union and whether or not they have to pay their fair share for representation. And this is going to be very big to labor unions because, of course, they need all the funds that they can get. And if they aren't able to collect some money from folks for representation, for the lobbying that they do, for the representation that they do, this is going to be a tremendous, tremendous blow to labor unions.
And many
now,
union
it may be limited to just health care. I mean, it really could be crafted. It depends on how the Supremes come down on this, whether it's going to be crafted purely to these facts and these folks, or whether it's broad scope.
The future of broadcast TV. Now, I've been watching this, and a lot of us have for a long time. This is ABC TV versus Arrow, and Arrow is that marvelous technology some say is theft.
Right, and this is about cloud, really sort of where technology is going, about cloud computing. And this is a service that people can subscribe to, Arrow, and where they can actually, they pay and they're able to get different programming that could actually go into their DVR, or they can watch it on the internet. And what ABC and other networks are saying is, wait a second, they need to be treated like a cable company. They are acting like a cable company. Of course, Arrow is saying no. So this is very interesting because this is where technology is going.
All right, about 30 seconds left here, real quick. They just decided the whistleblower rights.
Whistleblower rights, that whistleblowers are protected. They cannot be fired for testifying about corruption. Very, very big, and that reverses a lower court decision.
And taxpayer rights, not automatically entitled to a hearing to question motives behind a summons issued by the IRS.
And this is a big win for the IRS. It's a big win for the government because they really have to show some sort of malice or bad intent. You can't just automatically have a hearing. Big, big.
I'm not even really shocked about that, to be very honest with you. The IRS would
no.
get
Why
a
would they
favor
want a
from the Supreme
hearing?
Court.
Why would they want a hearing?
Why would they want to tell anybody exactly why they're going after them? It makes no sense whatsoever in this society.
Now you don't want to have a target on your back. So.
No, that's quite all right. Believe me, a target's been there once before and they missed every time. Michelle, thank you so much for joining
my pleasure.
us. Absolutely. Michelle Suskauer is our legal analyst. Now you go ahead and get to tell us what you think via social media of all these various decisions and how they may apply to you. Certainly the Hobby Lobby case is something that we are going to be talking about for many months to come. Get a hold of us, Twitter, email, and Facebook, and stay with us because this is MidPoint, where every day we question everything.